Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the August CIFT Agribusiness Forum. We're going to give everybody a couple minutes to join in here, and we'll get started. Just give us about two minutes. Quite a crowd hopping on. This is great.
Glad to hear it.
All right. Well, why don't we get started? We got over 20 here. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the, CIFT August Agribusiness Forum. If you can, we'll have questions at the end. So if you have those, you can put those in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll address those at the end. Thank you for joining us. Let me introduce myself to start out. My name is Todd Underwood. I'm the Strategic Marketing Manager of CIFT, and I'd just like to start out and say a few things about CIFT and what we do for maybe people who are new here. The Ohio MEP is part of a nationwide public-private partnership with centers in all 50 states, including Puerto Rico, and we are dedicated to serving small and medium-sized manufacturers. CIFT is one of 6 centers affiliates in the state of Ohio. Our vision is to be a partner in solutions innovation for food manufacturing and agribusiness. We work to achieve this vision through a blend of direct services, a membership consortium making up leading companies in the food space, and a vast network of resources and other partnerships. Our goal is to increase competitiveness and growth in Northwest Ohio and throughout the state. This agribusiness helps us with that mission by highlighting new trends, innovation, and other information with those interested in our space. Today, shortly I'll be joined by our co-host Kareem Hamouda, who's also from CIFT. He's our small business development specialist. He'll be taking the questions at the end, and I'm very honored today to be introducing our featured speaker, Paul Friedman. He is the director of the Appalachia Regional Food Business Center. Paul brings a wealth of experience in land use policy, zoning, and planning from his tenure with the city of Columbus. He has developed area plans, implemented strategies, and coordinated various developmental projects. He has an extensive background, including managing the floodplain management program, developing legislative language, and conducting public meetings. He will be sharing his expertise today to provide valuable insights into the initiatives that impact of Appalachia USD Regional Food of the Appalachia USD Regional Food Business Center. So on that note, I will turn it over to Paul, and thanks so much for joining us this morning, Paul. Looking forward to this, and I'll let you share your screen, and I will get off the.
Good morning, everyone. Let me just get my screen shared up here. There we go. Thanks for the introduction there, Todd. And I do want to also cover that not only do I have that background in city planning, but I also have background in food. We do run a fruit wine and honey wine production facility down here in the Southeast Ohio area. And obviously that means I know what the wholesale and retail marketplace and space is like for a small business, as well as we run our own little food truck for the winery. So we know what we're both a net producer and net consumer on both the retail and wholesale level. So I know what it's like to try to bring a product to market. I know what it's like trying to get distribution channels open. And I know what it's like trying to also purchase as a net user of retail food, net user of wholesale food for retail production. So I'm pretty well versed in this. So that's kind of gave me a leg up with developing as a director, along with 18 partners, the Appalachia USDA Regional Food Business Center. I'm not alone. The manager is Heron Linscott. She's not able to attend today, but Heron is critical to the operation as well. There are 12 regional food business centers across the country. They're developed. And this is their blurb. We can read through it, but I want to give a little more detail than just what it says on the screen. USDA regional food business centers are established to drive economic opportunity across the region, creating a more diversified and resilient food system. What that really means is it became apparent at the height of the pandemic in 2020 that the food supply chain collapsed. We had farmers with an excess of production. You can think of the chickens as an example I often use. We had farmers that had chicken wings that couldn't be processed, chickens that couldn't be processed for chicken wings, but yet we had consumers that wanted chicken and chicken wings. And when that broke down, that highlighted one of the unfortunate realities of centralization and economy of scale, is that as you move up economy of scale, you gain better economies, but you also lose resiliency. So the goal of this program is to help a small, medium-sized, mid-tier, so that'd be your food processors, your aggregators, your distributors, and alternative forms of retail really thrive. It gives them technical availability of technical expertise, as well as a grant program. We'll get into that. I know a lot of people will probably eager to hear about the details of the grant program or subaward program. And the goal here is really to transform the food supply chain across the country. Despite the name, it's not just Appalachia. We cover all of Ohio, Tennessee, and Kentucky. So the idea here is to transform the food chain across the geographies to allow for better opportunities for small and mid-sized businesses to get into the distribution and grow, and thereby helping the farmers, because as demand increases, the demand for farm products would increase as well. What is the USDA Regional Food Business Design? Create opportunities for target region-specific solutions. So that's basically saying we're not a top-down solution. Each center will have a different set of rules developed by that center. We've worked very hard with 18 partners across the 7 states we cover. We'll get into the geography of the center in a minute. And that means that this isn't the USDA telling an area what the rules are. It's us figuring out what we need for the individual area. Maximize locally driven investment impact. The goal here isn't just to have federal grants. The grant decisions are made locally. And the idea is to couple that with technical assistance so that there is the opportunity to ask questions to maximize the value of the money that's being flowed through the center. Complement and support other USDA programs. What's kind of unique is our technical assistance is not just limited to applying for our subaward. We've helped other applicants when the RFSI program was open here in Ohio apply for that. We can help you look at other grant opportunities. We can help you explore other USDA programs. We can help you as a producer look at other options outside of USDA. So the goal here really is to not just throw money at a problem, it's to bring expertise to bear and collaborate with USDA Marketing Service to ensure ongoing regional appropriate support. So this is a cooperative agreement. It's not a grant program. I may refer to that as this program as such euphemistically, but really it is a cooperative agreement. There is, if not weekly, there's definitely monthly give and take with the USDA and the opportunity to change. Unlike other programs that once it's in operation, there is no ability to move or change. Ours is flexible, both from our end and from USDA's end. If we notice there's something that needs to be changed, or an opportunity to change that mid-course and make mid-course corrections. 3 main parts of the program. Coordination. I think we covered some of that, but the goal here is to not only work with the other centers across geographies, but to work with other organizations. And here, the perfect example, working with CIFT, trying to coordinate and expand the ability for individuals to access the food distribution system, the mid-tier processors. So it's really a coordination role we play. And the goal here is also to break down geographies. If there's a question and we don't have the technical expertise, or technical expertise resides in another center, we can get the other center on a phone call and get that technical expertise to flow to a local recipient. So once again, the idea is to melt geographies away and to kind of break down the silos. And we've already had happened. We had a question from a food bank and food producer in Nashville. The technical expertise on the cold storage was actually recently highlighted at the Hunts Point Market redevelopment in New York City. So by reaching out to the Northeast Regional Food Business Center, we made a connection with the architect for that project and connected the Nashville grown up with an architect who did a project in New York City. It took a couple days. It was not instantaneous to make the connections, but the connections were made and there was no territoriality of anyone in between. Technical assistance, I think I mentioned this, but the goal here is to make available answers to questions. I know when I began food production, there really was no one to turn to answer both the more simplest questions as well as some of the more technical when you get into pump sizes and advice as to power provisions that really need three-phase. There was no one really to turn to, no mentors. Our organization has been big in providing farmers with mentors. The goal here is to get that technical assistance up into the food production system. And capacity building, once again, the money grabs the headlines, but there is indeed financial assistance available for mid-tier producers, small and medium-sized businesses that's up to a gross of $1 million a year, for up to no match $100,000 awards. And we'll get to more detail on that. And I know there will be questions, so we'll get definitely, I promise you, more detail on that. The geography, as you see, we do cover 7 states or parts of 7 states. And despite the name, as I mentioned earlier, being the Appalachia Regional Food Business Center, we do cover non-Appalachia counties by covering all of Ohio, all of Kentucky, and all of Tennessee, as well as the traditionally mapped Appalachia counties, all of West Virginia, Western Virginia, and the western part of Pennsylvania and Maryland. And we do have partners that spread across all these geographies. So, and that provides us a depth of knowledge. So whether it's CRAFT, a sister organization similar to CIFT out of Chatham University, whether it is a food distribution system in Northwest Tennessee, whether it is a shared use commercial kitchen here in Athens, AceNet, if you need the technical expertise, we probably have a partner that's dealt with that question before. So we have the geography and we have the technical expertise spread throughout the geography, and we can reach out to our sister centers across the country that have a different form of agriculture that expertise may lie. We've actually gotten questions about aquaculture, and expertise lies up in the Northwest, and we're able to make those connections as well. A little closer here on the mapping, but as you can see, we do cover the Western Pennsylvania, Western Maryland, and Western Virginia, as well as the other 4 states completely: Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Tennessee. 18 partners, I think I mentioned them. Just to emphasize this because the free money, the grant award program always gets the headlines, but the largest part of this center's funding goes to technical assistance. 36% goes to funding experts in various partnerships across the geography. So we want the questions to come once, and I mean this sincerely, it's not just a question of getting the grants out, it's giving the support to go along those grants. So we have referral and technical assistance to other grant programs, general questions, and we have some specialized expertise. As I mentioned, we have a shared use kitchen. We have a food hub housed within this. So if you were looking to establish a new food hub, because someone may have gone there before, and you can avoid the common pitfalls with a simple phone call or an email. And now the subawards, that everyone's probably here for today. First, they're subawards because this is a cooperative program, cooperative agreement. It's not a grant, so therefore these are not sub-grants of a grant. These are subawards. Little technical issue there. That's what they are. There are going to be 5 cycles. The first one is going to be opening in September of this year. Why 5 cycles? Because if we need to course correct, make changes, or someone isn't quite ready this September, there are going to be 4 other cycles every 6 months through the end of 2027 to allow you to obtain funding. There are 2 tracks. You will get into a little more detail, but it's up to 30,000. Requires a letter of support. The minimum is 5,000, and there's a minimum of 5,000 up to 100,000. Doesn't require the letter of support. So there are 2 different options, whether you want to get a letter of support or not, to get up to $100,000. That is per legal entity. No match, but I do want to caution everyone, it's a reimbursement grant, but we were able to get the reimbursement on a 30-day invoicing cycle. So that means if you're using $100,000 to buy 5 pieces of equipment, $20,000 each, it's reimbursement. You don't have to have an outlay of $100,000 all at once. Over a course of 5 months, you can buy a piece of equipment, get it in, get reimbursed, and get the next piece of equipment. So your capacity, your capitalization is lower. in that example. So the idea here is that even though it's reimbursement, we couldn't get around that. We do have 30-day invoicing for reimbursement. And I do want to caution also that it cannot be used for construction or purchase of property. That's one thing in the federal government is we can help you in lots of other ways. You might have to strategically use the funding, but we can't help with the construction or permanent improvements. There is a exception to that. Minor improvements for installation of equipment that's purchased for this program can be covered as part of the purchase. So if you're buying a fruit press, these examples I'm familiar with, and you need to run a branch circuit for electricity, we can cover that as form of construction as part of the grant or subaward to get that machinery. Another note, I do want to caution, much like any other USDA grant, this would be considered taxable income. So you definitely do want to talk to your tax advisor before applying to make sure that it's something that you can deal with financially when tax time comes. Probably the most important slide today, what can this subaward be used for? It can support staff time, business planning activities, software implementation. So if you're needing new software to run the machinery, if you're needing new tracking software, it can cover that. Purchase of specialized equipment, food safety processing. The good idea here is, the example we use, we can't just buy an F-250, but we could buy a specialized refrigerated delivery equipment. Value chain, supply chain coordination. So we can do pay for the creation of co-ops. We can pay for, and that's both wholesale co-ops as well as retail co-ops. Product development, so that means we can get into funding applications for process authority letters, some engineering of products, marketing. So we can do marketing studies. That can be all paid for through the no match $100,000 sub award. Obviously, you're going to need a budget. You're going to need a fairly cohesive plan, but we can actually fund pretty broadly all these items outside of construction, land purchases, and some other limitations, non-specialized equipment. I know there are going to be questions up there. We may come back to this, but I do want to just mention that this is probably the most critical slide of the day. Before we get into the questions, I think the other thing that's important is the ability to give our contact information. Once again, I'm Paul Friedman. The best way to reach me is info@appalachiarfbc.org. That is our webpage, appalachiarfbc.org. It has information about the grants. Soon we're going to be posting the RFA, request for applications. That's going to go into more details as to the nature of the grant and all the fine print. And we definitely encourage you to read the fine print. As I mentioned earlier, that this is a reimbursement grant. This would be considered taxable income. So we want everyone to be prepared as they apply. You're going to need a UEI number. You don't already have one. So we definitely are going to need that for your application to be processed. There's videos on that website to help you get your UEI number. If that's still an issue, you can reach out to us. We have tech staff, once again, technical assistance, to help you get the UEI number and then navigate the alphabet soup of both this program and several others from the USDA. At this point, I think if it's possible to open up the Q&A channel, I think that would be great.
All right, thanks, Paul. Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you for that really great information. If anybody has any questions, at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A function. If you want to go ahead and put your questions in there.
And I do apologize, it is a lot of information. I want to cover it quick. I know we had an hour, and I want to leave the most time for questions and answers because that's really where we get into the details of the information that everyone attending today probably needs, as opposed to me just guessing and going over code of federal regulations that actually exist behind this program, because that just made my head hurt, and I spent 30 years reading code, so I didn't want to inflict that on anyone else.
Sure. All right, if anybody has any Please go ahead and put those in there. Oh, here we go, first one. This is from Kay Moser. She wanted to know which regional center serves the Hawaiian Islands.
That would be the islands and remote areas, that's shown here in gray. I don't have a pointer, but in the lower right hand of the title, island and remote areas. So they would cover Hawaii. And you think that this geography is expansive. They actually cover quite a bit of the Caribbean as well, even though it's not shown. So you can imagine their logistics of covering Alaska, Puerto Rico, Guam, Hawaii. The time zones is pretty expansive. So my hat is tipped to the staff up there. They do a great job, even though they're covering, I think it's 7 time zones, but that would be the islands and remote areas. Sali is a great manager. He is located in Hawaii. If you need a referral over, I can do that as well. Just send an email to info@appalachiarfbc.org. I check that on a daily, if not hourly basis, and I'll make the connection.
Okay, looks like we got a couple more questions coming in. I'll give them just a second.
Excellent question, Victoria. Can a legal entity receive more than one subaward if they apply? Yes. You can get more than one subaward, but you cannot go over 100,000 in total, and that is between the number of subawards and between different centers. And when could different centers come into play? Well, if we cover Memphis part of the infrastructure, the CSA, the MSA of Memphis is into the Delta. So you can see if you have multiple facilities, you may cover multiple. We have food distributors and processors that have facilities in Michigan and Ohio, and you may wind up in a position where you're applying to both. You can do that depending on the location of the facility. You just can't go over $100,000 either across centers or through multiple rounds. In fact, we encourage you to consider applying multiple rounds if that is what you need. If you're a startup, you need startup money to start doing the marketing studies. And then once you're established, you have a better business model and plan to go for a second round to get into more depth of what you actually know what you need to do to produce what you want to produce. Can you give examples of projects that have been supported through the business center? Unfortunately, if you mean supported by a grant, this is our first round of grants. So I don't have examples of funding. I mentioned earlier, we have technical assistance, and we mentioned helping Nashville Grown better manage or better develop, better build their cold storage. So we've had that. We've helped applicants through our technical assistance apply for the RFSI grant here in Ohio. So we've offered technical assistance in that way. If you're looking for individual actual food items, I don't have examples of someone developing a new food product. That wasn't disclosed to us when they went for the RFSI grant. We did have an aquaculture producer here that the shrimp production wanted additional backup generators and equipment and applied to the RFSI, and we helped them make that application. But if you're looking for better examples, unfortunately, I don't have one in this business center, and the grant is to the first business center to launch their grant is North Central, and they're still going through the review process. But once again, if you send an email, as soon as we get you to the first center, gets some approval, we get some statistics, we can get that out to you. The North Central went first with their subaward program.
Okay, great. Okay, do we have any other questions? You can put those in the Q&A. All right. Oh, we've got one more. Does a project need to be considered transformative in nature to support or participate with the center or anything that is food related?
There's a couple of things there. When you say transformative, there is no requirement for it to be transformative. Some of the scoring matrix, which is going to be in the RFA and released to our website, potentially score higher but that isn't going to necessarily be a yes or no issue there. Just because it's less transformative, probably will not knock you out of the funding. Now, is it food related? It does bring up a good question. Yes, it has to be food related. It can be transformative in the food realm, but it has to still be food related, food for human consumption, that is. I do want to specify. We get this question, so ornamental flowers would not qualify. Um, if you have a food production stream and you're going to do something transformative with the waste, composting, that would not qualify. The composting part would not qualify. We did have those two questions already outside of today's forum. So it has to be related to food for human consumption. So we also had a question about pet food. That would not qualify. Even though it's food, it has to be food for human consumption. But depending on how you frame your grant, if you're doing food production for human consumption and for pets, we can help you on the human side, and that may free up your resources for the pet side. So there is some strategy, the potential, but the direct subaward cannot directly help non-food, non-human consumption projects. Great question.
We've got another question, but from anonymous. Thank you for offering this info. I'm definitely going to look into your resources and appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today.
Thanks for the I guess you call it a shout out there, and I definitely take a look at it. And even if you don't qualify or feel you don't qualify, but you're interested in the technical assistance is much broader. They're not restricted to food for human consumption. So if you need technical assistance with that transformative idea, reach out. We have experts. So even though the subawards are restricted, I do want to emphasize that technical assistance isn't. So if you are looking at better ways to deal with waste byproduct out of your food production, off your farming operation, if you're looking for different ways to farm, we can cover that with the technical assistance, even though it's not eligible for the subaward. That's one of the nice things that's novel about this program. The restrictions aren't there on the technical assistance side as they would be in other programs. We can help you apply for other grants. So even if our grant program doesn't fit, if there's another grant program, state level grant, we can actually help you. We can't write the grant for you. We don't have grant writers for that, but we definitely can give you feedback, review grant applications, and be a sounding board.
All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions. Last chance. Okay, well, I want to say again, thank you to Paul for joining us today. Thank you, Kareem, for coming on and joining us too. Well, we got one more. Snuck in at the end. Who decides on the award of the grant? How long does it take to find out?
The grant is decided. There are going to be 3 scorers. There's going to be 2 internal to the center, 1 external from the industry in the area. So 1 from the minimum of 1 from each state and 1 from the parts of each state. So there's going to be at least 7. Depending on workload, we could double that or triple that, depending on the number of grants we get. And we also, so there's going to be 3-team scorer. And eventually that will get reviewed by the subcommittee of partners, 18 partners. So that's who decides it. It's not the USDA, it's decided locally. And as part of that question, how long does it take? We're looking at, for example, the first round, the grant will be open September and October. We're looking at a approximately 4-week review cycle, and then 2 weeks on the USDA. So we're hoping approximately 6 weeks before announcement, and then there will be some ministerial, as there always is, paperwork to get the funds out. The funds are distributed by the center, not the USDA. Our fiscal agent for this was Mountain Association. So it would be up to us to also backtrack. I do want to mention here that as with any government program, even though it's cycled through, in this case, not-for-profits, there is going to be reporting. I mentioned earlier the downside of being taxable and the downside not covering construction. I do want to mention there's going to be reporting, especially if you go over 30,000, there's going to be some specialized reporting for equipment. The goal here is with equipment reporting to make sure you're not getting a grant, buying the equipment and then selling it as a way around the grant. So there's going to be some reporting requirements and a closeout report as well. What if the org is focused on CSA egg production, educational opportunities in communities? Once again, if that is for food for human consumption, that is an opportunity to apply. We can cover that as part of the education. So even if it's, once again, the value chain coordination, and we are able to cover that, if the goal there is to help, and I believe it would be, egg production become more efficient and reach more of the market. So we can cover that under value chain coordination.
Okay. All right, so we got a couple last minute questions in there. That's great to show some interest. So I want to again thank Paul for coming and joining us this morning. Thank you, our audience. We had quite a big online crowd today, so it was nice to see everybody here first thing in the morning. This will be available on our YouTube channel by tomorrow. Usually it takes about 24 hours. So if you want to see a recording of it, if you'd like to reach out to anyone at our team, we are always here to help you as well. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming. And Paul, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Looking forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. And once again, if I can close, that was Paul Friedman, info@appalachiarfbc.org. Please do not hesitate to write any questions, please.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful Thursday, and information about our next Ag Forum will be coming shortly. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.